Three, two, one. We are live.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
Hey, it's us.
Yeah, another day. Yeah, the sun came
Who
up.
knew? I know, right? It's a beautiful
I'm,
day in paradise, and
I'm
it's
hoping so. Well,
yeah,
we'll see what happens. But yeah, we
that's
got to go
true.
through
Today
interesting time.
is March. It's as David calls it. It's Hollywood March 6th. But in
Huh?
they get Hollywood March 6th because today's really March 4th when we record the show for the artist. So we were just talking about all the fun stuff off air that's going on. So who knows by next week
Yeah.
what
Well, we're getting close to the Ides of March, and one never knows,
that's true. And
What
pretty soon
people
we may
say.
just call this instead of Canadian art today, it may just be the 51st state art today. We don't know. We'll see. No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
well, we can talk about art. It's one of those things.
There you go. Art's good. No
Well,
politics
art,
involved.
art is a great release, but it's also a great awareness piece. There's a great response from artists around the world. They use their art to respond to their daily things that are happening and the things
Yep.
that whether or peace or whether it's one of those things where you're things or whatever. It's a vent, way to
No
verbalize
doubt.
and visualize what's going
Yeah.
on. And many musicians have done it from day one.
Right.
Whether you're listening to songs that have been written, Dylan type songs that talk
Yeah.
about the times, which are very apropos. The times are back, just like Dylan said they'd be.
Everything is back. It'll just be intriguing. But today, no
Free running.
politics. We're just gonna have art. And we
We
have a
are,
very
and
interesting artist.
yes, we have Shelley Eros,
Yes.
from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and now Shelley's work is different. We've been showing a lot of painters and sculptors
Right.
and even jewelry people, some of the things. And now Shelley's work I find really interesting because she's doing what they call monoprinting. So
Hmm.
it's a technique that's used, and it can work. It's very energy building when you work this kind of work, and it's inking on things and pressing them onto paper and pulling images. But you can work. I've done monoprints before, so
Mhm.
they can work the print a number of ways, and it can change as you go through a process. When you make your first one, then you can take it still leaves ink on a plate to make something else, and you can add to it, and it can go on and on and on. Um, they are great energy and idea building ideas. So artists that are looking for a way to rejuvenate themselves, figure out new concept. It's quick, it's easy in some places how to make
Right.
these. So if you're trying to figure a concept out, you can produce a whole bunch of monoprints before you start putting paint to canvas, for instance. You don't want to waste your paint. That's one reason, but the other way is developing ideas. And monoprint is very different than just painting, though. So it gives you a different kind of look, economical as well. So a lot of times the prints are and they're an actual print. They're not like a photocopy. They're not a color
Right.
copy. So they're hand pulled pieces. So let's bring Shelley in, and we're
We
gonna
should.
rather than telling you about
There
it,
you go.
we're gonna
And
talk about it.
tell the audience. Shelley, welcome to the show.
Good
Hello.
day.
Good morning to
Yeah,
you.
Good
yeah.
morning.
Good.
Good morning. All right. Well, we're
So,
going to let you two have at it. I'm going to disappear. I'll be back at the end with my famous questions. So if you've seen any of the shows, you
oh,
know what they are. And if not, you're SOL. Anyway, we'll see you guys later. Have a great interview.
yeah.
Thanks.
Well, good
Hi,
morning. Good
Paul.
morning to you. Yeah. So you're all energied up. You've been working in your studio this
I
last little while.
have I have been working quite a bit. Yes.
Yeah.
I,
No, it's
there's always other daily things that have to be done, but yes, I
well,
try
you live on an acreage as well, or a farm, or
an acreage. Yeah.
yeah. So there's work to do there for sure.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of outdoors here.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, I think when I look through some of your work, that's where some of the inspiration comes from that you work on your work. Is that not correct? You get inspired by those walks and the trees and all the things that are around you, the nature of that.
It almost always comes from outdoors.
Yeah.
and walks on the trails and my garden, flowers for my garden. Yes.
One day they'll be back, the flowers.
Yeah.
We're still waiting. You're, you're sitting in with snow-covered flowers for the moment, I think, for everybody. We're in that bit of a melt season right now. It's, warm, cool, warm, cool. And
Yes.
but hopefully we're out of the real cold, deep freeze, and we're seeing some spring stuff happening. And I think that's encouraging because I can see that in artists that are either right now painting from photos or memories of the last previous years. And now the fresh stuff will be coming up in the spring. So the
I
can you
never use I never use like reference like that. Names.
yeah,
I,
well, you're kind of we're breaking up a little bit here. So maybe just um I think to focus basically on where did you start? Like this, we call it the art journey a little bit, but where in the beginning do you start with your art at the beginning? Your ideas, where do they come from, and how far? Like your husband used to also paint as well. Is that correct?
sure, but I didn't meet Craig till I was 19. I started piano study when I was 5. Same
Oh
year I
yeah,
went to school.
yeah,
So, I got a feeling about music and, how it just can transcend a person just from
yeah.
their ordinary, mundane lives, even at that age. And
Yeah.
then in primary school, um, making a
Is that when
sculpture out
is
of
that when you
paper
got is
mache.
that when you got is that when you got the bug, the painting bug? Was in primary
That's when
school?
I got it. The
Yeah,
building, it's not even just the painting, but just making things, making anything.
right. Yeah. Where were the inspirations as a child? Where did they come from? Like, was it nature as well, or in the beginning?
Outdoors. I was an outdoor kid
Yeah,
always.
always
Yeah.
outdoors. Okay,
And I had a lot of freedom. Like I just had to be home before it was dark. That's
I
all.
know those were the days, weren't they? As kids, you got you got
Yeah,
a little bit more freedom maybe than we get kids today. A little bit, I think, and really, I think that makes, and that's a personal perception. It gives maybe the right to have that freedom in your work from the freedom you had as a child. Maybe, do you think that makes a difference?
absolutely. I
Yeah,
do. Plus, like
yeah.
just the opportunities that, I was given as a kid. I was in skating and team sports and I had a horse and, I was
Did you
just
parent
always out.
did your mom and dad support you, like, what you were doing? Like, encourage you through all
I
that?
can't I can't really say that, but yet obviously
They
they were because they're the ones that, put me in piano study at 5 for some reason. I have no idea
okay.
why. So yes,
Yeah. Well, I think that's really nice that you're able to have, a parent that kind of said, "Make sure you have enough crayons, make sure you had enough paper, give you some time." Like, we didn't have as much TV time, or there was no devices, the handheld things and the games to play that were there were board games that we played. I think most of us is that, in those days. I mean, we kind of made our own fun. Is that I think in those is that what it was the same with you? You as kids just made your own fun?
made our own fun, but I never played games
You weren't a
really.
board game person? Like, yeah,
No,
like checkers
I
and
was I was the outdoor person. No.
all the time outdoors. I'm gonna get
Mm.
Steven to start our first image up here, and we'll get that. There we go. There we go.
Oh,
So, in your introduction, we talked about monoprinting, which is it's sort of like monotypes or monoprinting. You can call them either one.
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your process? Understanding people that this is actual handmade prints. Like, these are not photocopies of any kind or giclées or things like that. Um, can you tell us about the process of making your monoprints a little bit?
Sure. Um, I usually do multi-layered and then pull all at once.
Okay. So
Um,
yeah. you actually put your painting onto a substrate, like you paint and apply the pigment directly to a smooth surface of some kind. What kind of surface do you use initially?
I,
Like
I use
plastic
a,
or
I use a gel plate or glass a lot.
a glass?
So I
Okay.
put yeah. So I put everything on what thinking backwards, knowing your first layer that you put down is what you're going to be seeing on the monoprint. It's not like painting a canvas and having your last layer on the top. Your first
Right.
layers that shows is first. So I try to go with translucent colors firstly, and then, build values backwards. And
Okay.
then when I think I've got enough composition, I'll put one more opaque, usually coat of paint on it, and then pull it off all at once. It may be under books or something for several hours or overnight till I'm sure the paper dries, but I will
Yeah.
pull it and all the layers will come off.
Okay. So initially the painting is done on glass. Now what kind of paint are you using? Like acrylics? Or are you printmaking ink or what do you use?
No, I'm not using printmaker ink. I'm using acrylics,
Okay.
alcohol inks, acrylic inks.
Okay.
I'm going to start doing oils.
Yeah. Well, part of it is
That's a
this.
goal.
Yeah. You got to make sure your pigment is wet for the length of time that you need to pull it. So if it dries on you, it doesn't peel. So people understand that if never done a mono print, you put your work onto you paint onto a smooth surface, like Shelley's using a glass, um, and then once it's done, you put paper on top of it, and you can either what rub it. You can rub it on the back of the paper to release the pigment to the front, and then you peel the paper back, and the
Yeah.
image is now in reverse. That image turns in reverse of what you put down on the glass. Is that correct?
Yes, I use a brayer, or it's easier on the hands. Like after you do, been working quite a long time to constantly using the fingers they can get sore. So I use like a brayer just to
Yeah.
make sure that there's very good contact with the whole work
Yeah. So do you
instead of
do a bit of the peak? Do you do the peak process where you lift the corner up and see if it's down and put it back down and rub if you need to?
yeah, I've done
Yeah.
that. But I find, waiting till the paper's really dry, it's I don't even really have that problem anymore.
Yeah.
It all comes up, which in a way is wants me to go back to like a real monoprint where I'm pulling each layer, because I find when I'm pulling all of these layers that so much of it comes off that I don't even get ghost prints anymore. Like that fine hazy image that, so those were always some of my favorites.
Yeah. I
So
found that a lot of times when they're fresh like that, you pull your proof and then the paper comes off. But like you said, there's a bit of an image left on the glass from your previous piece. So what happens? What can people monoprint? Like I've seen these are images of flowers here. Are they just hand painted on there, or do you use actually? Can you pull a leaf off a tree and ink that and put it down on the paper, and it'll pull an impression of the leaf, for instance?
yeah, there's all sorts of techniques for that. You can do
Yeah.
like multiple layers and multiple pulls. Um, Previous years, I've laid down fresh greenery from the outdoors and lifted, printed it onto paper, and then lifted the paper, taken out all of the uh, organic stuff, and put the paper back exactly where it was, so that I got all of the imprints and veins and all the very small details onto the print, and then again pulled it once rather than having like a negative space where There
Right.
was nothing on the print that I would have had to have done something with, but there's so many different techniques to doing leaves and flowers and
Yeah.
branches.
Yeah. So understanding people would understand that you could ink a leaf and take that leaf and put it on the subject matter, put the paper on top of it, you rub it, and that leaf now shows up onto the paper. Right? This basic when you
Yes, you
that's
can do that.
basically where
But,
the kind of technique that might be used. Yeah. Yeah. So
but
it's kind of
I usually roll the paint out, then lay the flowers and leaves down, and
okay.
then do a good rubbing so that you can get all of the fine details.
Yeah.
And then take your paper off, take your leaves off, and go at it again. You can do several different
Yeah.
layers with different arrangements of flowers and leaves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, and once it's done, you got to throw the leaf away after it's been used a number of times because it kind of gets all kind of crumbly, which is a whole effect in itself. But
No, I keep
it,
them because they're all paint covered and they really maintain their shape good. So I
yeah.
keep them. I keep a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't.
Well, most artists have that. You have to have your stash of go-to things to get motivated, right? And so now this painting, how would you go about producing this piece? Like the petals in that flower, are they're like individual little pieces that are kind of tucked in there together. How was that hand painted, those ones?
Yeah, sometimes I paint over top of the monoprint.
Okay.
Rarely, but because I'm wanting to do more florals. This was where I went with this one. And yeah, they're hand painted. And then you could almost say that I used mixed media because I used Posca pens to highlight and shadow and used pens for mark making for the stems.
Right. Yeah, people understand that you got a puffy flower, you can't really get a monoprint of the puffy flower because it's going to squish up. It's not going to be able to reproduce well. So you've got to figure out other ways of replicating the look of that flower in some way, right? So,
A stencil could be easily used on the very
mhm,
top with the very first layer
right,
if you want to do it that way.
yeah,
Stencils can be used for that.
yeah.
You can get very detailed uh, images out of
Right. There's yeah, and
stencils
part of
or
it.
portions of stencils. You don't have to use the whole stencil, just even
Yeah.
just a part of it.
Yeah. I was just going to say
Oh,
there's no rules. There's no rules to it. You can do whatever you like. You can draw on it, paint on it. You know what I mean? I'm just saying to make it a monoprint is just could be a starting point to doing a painting. So can you monoprint onto canvas as well? Like, have you done that?
I've done it onto shirts, like t-shirts. I like making
Okay.
t-shirts sometimes, but canvas so far I haven't been successful. It's not like I'm not going to continue with my experiments, but I haven't been successful at doing it on canvas yet.
So it's probably more preparation of that surface a little bit, maybe, or more pigment or something, or maybe a different pressure system. So do you use roller system at all, like to run it through a press at all, or are yours all pretty all hand rubbed?
Mine are all hand rubbed, but I do have a ceramic slab roller that's really quite large, and I've got ideas to convert that.
I think that would work probably pretty darn good because you really don't need a lot of pressure to make a print. You just need even pressure, right across the whole roller. So I think that that slab roller, as long as it's not warped or anything, you can adjust the thickness of it and run. If you put your print onto a board and tape the corners of it and run it through. But I don't know if it's made on glass. You got to be careful, you know. I've done stuff with mylar and plastics, so those things they won't break, I guess is what we're saying. When you run them through a roller, for instance, hand rubbing is one thing, but um, part of the thing with plastics, they have an oil in them, in the plastic. So the first initial ones, you've got to break the tension on that plastic, so that because you know how it'll puddle up. Like if you got, you put pigment on it, then if there's too much water in it, it'll puddle up into a puddle and it won't cover the surface. So do you have that with your glass as well? Will it do the same kind of thing if there's too much water in it, the viscosity in there, it'll puddle rather than just sit nice and even on there? Do you have that problem at all?
Whole other technique in itself, just rolling out the color. Yeah.
Yeah.
I use
Yeah.
golden opens a lot. They're lovely, and if
Oh
the
yeah.
humidity is very dry, like it stays open long enough for you to work and pull your print. I used to go to my seasonal site in my RV at the lake, and I would try to do mono prints in the breeze in the hot summer. It
Yeah.
was impossible.
Yeah.
So golden opens are good.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah. I think a lot of the painters and stuff are actually using Golden Open for their works. Partly because of that reason that they stay wet longer. They're easier to blend and mix and do those things. But it's nice to know that you can use those paints as well to do monoprinting. Um,
Yeah,
I
I use.
find that, yeah, I
Sorry.
always found that it was a stage of idea development. I used to use monoprints earlier, like I haven't done one for years, but when I was trying to come up with ideas, like for a painting or say colors or just ideas to get started, you can do monoprints in an hour. You can do a whole bunch of monoprints, even small ones, just to get ideas of where you're going with the color palette or design or figuring out before doing a large painting. It's just, do you feel it? Do you use those like that as idea development as well? Like
I
when you're
do.
creating up, yeah,
Once I,
yeah,
have the feeling like, oh, I don't have a lot of time right now, but I really got to make something. As long as you got room for all your papers to dry, just
yeah.
keep.
So,
It's great for laying down ideas for composition for a bigger work, for a bigger
yeah.
format canvas.
So have you ever used them in a collage sense, like collaging them together to make a
I have,
montage? Yeah,
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 I have, yeah.
yeah. So people can use them as making larger bodies of work from them. So what is your biggest size that you presently do, like for monoprints on
Well,
paper?
I like to stick to a standard 11 by 14 inch, and then I've got these beautiful 16 by 20 white mats and boards that they look really good in. And my thought on that is 16 by 20 is the most popular size for a person to have artwork in their home. Not
Yeah,
everybody can have huge format
right.
artwork. So when it comes to the monoprints, uh, 11 by 14 is I could go a little bit bigger, but just to stick to a standardized size,
That's good
that's where I
advice.
go.
Yeah,
But I have an 8 by 10 as well. I do 8 by 10s. I do 6 by 6 inches, um, 3 by 5s.
yeah.
But one thing I've learned over the years is if I stick to standardized sizes, it's just way easier everywhere, everything, everywhere I go.
Yeah. So this piece here is um reds and oranges, like these colors in here, and then so is the white put on last? The little white stuff, the white, like we're just thinking of the layers that are here when you're building it up. So
Okay,
when you work,
this is a mixed media uh, acrylic painting on canvas.
oh, okay. So this is not a monoprint, this one.
This is not a monoprint. This has got a lot of structure paste on it that went on first.
Okay.
And then the layers of colors would have started with dark values, which you can kind of see through, say the white at the top. You can
Yeah.
maybe see through to the back. Those are my first layers on this canvas
Okay.
after my structure paste had dried. This is a monoprint.
This is a monoprint. Okay. So we're going to switch back and forth between some of the monoprints and some of the paintings. And I guess we're just looking at how they're related together, like how one can generate ideas for a painting. You know, a lot of times it goes in that way. And you can see the floral development in this one here. It feels like a fence and these beautiful flowers that are over the fence. You know, the neighbors got the flowers, you got the fence. It feels like I love the design. I love the design in this piece. It's a beautiful, or it could be a lot of things. It could be this pot with the flowers in it. I mean, you know, it could be you know, I read a lot of things into things, but I love the textures that are in here, and it's held together, you know, beautifully. Everything's bled off to the top, bottom, right side. You know, it's a full image, right? There's not a uh, it kind of it feels flatter. So when you went into the doing the flowers, are they stamped in there or did you draw those on? Those are they stenciled, the flowers? I'm just
To, no, to be honest, I was touching up all the paint in my interior of my home. So as I was painting, I'd be down in the studio because I'd have to be washing brushes and mixing paint, and as if I had a bunch of paint on my brush, I don't like to waste paint, so I'll put it somewhere. So I started putting it on my plate. And every time I walked by as I was painting my home, I would be adding it onto my plate.
oh to the piece. Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, you know, those I guess you get inspired by the moment that you're in. You know, if you're you know, get tired of painting on the wall and now you said I can like you said, you got paint left in the brush. Like what do you do with that? You can either wash it out or you can that's great that you can use it. I think it's a lovely piece. I mean it's got some spontaneity to it, but it's got a really strong design on it. I love the piece.
Um, Thank you. Can you see in the forefront part of the pot or the fence the little marks that are like leaves? Those were like those were already on the plate, and when I picked it up, it picked up that reference of my pencil drawing.
So in here,
So you can, you know, people can transfer images onto these plates as well.
yeah.
And
So that can build your layer and the look of layers and color, correct? Like when you that ghost pieces that are from a previous one, and you can just that's what I like about it. You can keep adding to it and adding to it, and as you take things away, it leaves an impression, and you can work on top of it and keep on going. So you can end up with 6 or 10 proofs from the same one, and they move. I mean, they started with the same conception in that front, but it changes as you move through, as you produce different proofs. And that's what I really love about monoprints when you allow yourself enough time to play with it. I guess I'll use that word, play with it. You find that
it's
it's quite playful, like the idea generation, it just happens.
and that's why I love it so much. It
Yeah.
seems when I'm doing a work on canvas or hardboard, it's like I get serious for some reason. But when
You're
I'm
breaking up.
like, I
Yeah.
have to still be thoughtful when it comes to the monoprints, just for composition and what you're going to see first because everything's backwards. But it's just so much
Yeah.
fun. I just love it
Yeah.
for that.
Well, they definitely are fun. And I think it's just kind of I don't know. I love I just love the technique. I mean, I'm all about energy and idea generation. I mean, I love that. They said, where do ideas come from? They said this is a great idea generator. Like, you know, you because there's there's some things you can control, and there's a lot of things you can't control, and you get surprised all the time by, oh my goodness, that looks great. I didn't, can I use that somewhere else or just leave it the way it is? And I mean, just love that book. This is probably a little bit more of your abstract, but you can feel it. Is there some leaf structure in there? Veining? It looks like veining of leaves a little bit
I
in
have a
this one.
very old monstera plant in my music room at the front of the house. It's about 45, 50 years old. It takes up a whole corner of a room where a chair or something could be. For a while, I had been wanting to see how one of these monster leaves would print. And I was also working on a limited palette idea for a canvas painting. So I was mixing colors and then trying things out on the plate. And my final color was the metallics. And then I had to rush off and leave home before I knew it was dry. So I just left it under books and then 4 days later when I got back home, I ran to the studio like it was Christmas to pull this and see what the result was. And at first I thought, it's so subtle. But so often with the monoprints especially, it's like opening a kiln. It's like Christmas morning
Yeah.
opening a glaze kiln. It's just such a surprise. So yes, at first I thought this was very subtle, maybe too subtle. But then I've learned through the years that I accept the paintings for what they are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't get too caught up in it, but I love the fact though that it's the big reveal after 2 or 3 days under a book, and you can look at them. I don't know if I'm that patient to wait that long, and when I did mine, I'll pull them through a press, and I'll peek under the corner, and if I have to burnish, I do burnish and pull them off, but because I want to continue using that plate. I I probably look right away and I let it dry and I move on to the next, the next, the next. That way you can, perpetuate 6 or 8 proofs off of that initial plate. By the time you get to the end, there is no ghost proof left of the initial proof. Like it's gone because you've worked it and worked it. But it's nice to see where you started and where you end. And like you said, it's that big reveal when you lift the corner of the paper up and you look at it, it's in reverse, but you go, oh my, or oh no, like one way or the other. But there's always a surprise because you think you got everything, but it always leaves you with a freshness of idea. Like it doesn't matter. Like this one left you with a freshness of possibly too subtle, but then you look at it again and you see other things in it that you would not have got otherwise if you hadn't done it that way. Yeah, but I don't know if
To
4 days under a book is any more different than 2 days under a book, but that was the window of opportunity, and it's good that
if
you.
I was at home, it would have never been 4 days, but it would have been overnight at best.
Yeah. I just found that if things dry that long, and all of a sudden it starts leaving paper attached to the glass. Uh, have you had that problem at all, or does it completely release all the time? Your paper, like doesn't stick
This
there like
This one was off of a gel plate. It all released.
it all released. Okay, yeah. So there
Yeah.
are a number of things that you
Hmm.
can print on, and different things you can do. But people wanting information about, there are lots of books out there on monoprinting and also on some of the other channels on YouTube and things you can figure out a starting point for you. Like a lot of people just say, well, how do I start? And it's how would you advise people? I'm going to go to another one. How would you advise people to start their monoprinting if they never done it before? They just want to do a monoprint just to see what it's like. And they can do one on their kitchen table almost. They don't need a full studio to do these. That's what's really nice about this process. So yeah.
I
How
learned
how
everything on YouTube.
oh, from
It's
YouTube.
almost
Okay.
almost everything I need to know. It doesn't matter if it's, learning how to charge a battery. I pretty much learn everything on YouTube.
Yeah. But the nice thing with monoprints, you can do it with your kids. Like kids can do these things. Like it's not an adult only thing. It is a kind of a cleanup thing if you're not careful, but but kids can have a riot doing these things, and they begin it's a fun thing on a rainy day, for them to play with. Can you tell us a
So,
little bit can you
do you
tell us
want
a
to
little
talk
bit about
about?
this one?
Yeah, it's hip to be square. This is a mixed media acrylic painting on hardboard.
Okay, so this is a painting, this one. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can see your technique though of monoprinting is affecting your painting. I can see it in the background. There's ghosting of images and different things that are happening, even though you may be applying it with a brush. Is that mostly, do you use a palette knife as well, or do mostly just a brush when you paint?
I hardly ever use brushes. I
Okay.
use spatulas and things like that. But again, like the monoprints, I don't know what came first, the mixed media work or the canvas work or I think the monoprintings might have started first, but it's always been multi-layered for depth, I think.
Yeah. This feels very spatial. This feels like I'm in space. These squares are floating around on this little background that's a little, colorful, but mystifying. I don't know what it is. Like it's trying to tell me there's imagery back there, but instead of like looking in deep space and these little objects are floating around in the foreground, coming back and forth to me, the structures. Yeah. So what about,
Uh,
can you tell us about the little squares? Like, where does this come from? The idea
it's
of it, not so much.
it's not so much that it's just squares. I was trying to use the golden ratio. So the squares are just like focal points of a golden ratio composition that you don't might not notice. And I
Okay.
just happened to use squares. And the little squares, they're structure. So a lot of them are structure.
Okay.
So those are, give a lot of depth. And then to finish off the piece, um, some of the squarer, more fallow Prussian blue squares, they're actually uh, probably a gel print that I did on um, tracing paper. And then I collaged them on
Okay.
to this mixed media piece.
Oh, okay. So these pieces are actually glued into place, and then you keep working it like over and over again, the different things. Am I
Uh,
getting that
just
correct?
just a few, just maybe one, two, three, four, five, six, seven of the squares are only collaged on.
Okay. Yeah.
Everything else is structure, risen 3D structure.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's got I like it that they've got these sharp edges to the squares, yet like you said, that background is kind of indescript, colorful, got some depth, and it feels like there's something going on visually back there, and it's making me really kind of sort out what is that, and then my imagination is starting to kick in, and I think that's the nice thing about pieces of work that you see different things in it, like in the works that are produced. But no, it's a lovely piece, and I think monoprinting probably helps you get to these stages, and this helps you get to stages in your monoprinting back and forth. So I kind of like that. And then we get to this one here. Yeah. Were these okay? Is this a painting initially? This one? Is this a painting? We got a little bit of dead air happening here. We've got a feed problem. Yeah, Steve, your voice is gone, Steven. We got no voice.
That's because I had mute. Anyway, she froze.
She definitely froze. We'll have to see if
So,
she.
and this could be the end of the show unless she
Well,
comes back.
we'll see what happens. She unfreezes from. It
We'll
happens.
see
She
if
got
she unfreezes.
a bit of a bad feed today.
But this is pretty. I like this one. I liked all her stuff. I looked at her website earlier. She has
We
very
can
great.
talk.
She
We
has
can
great
talk
stuff.
about it. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
We talked about this in Lily and the crackle finish that she was
Yeah.
getting from her paint and how she develops that and works through it. It's too bad. We'll just wait and see if she comes back in, but we can still show it. We can still show it. And
It's very different. So it's very nice.
well, it's one of those things. Yeah, we can talk about it a little bit. She does her iridescent painting on them as well.
Yeah.
Metallic paints and
There you go.
there she is.
Wait, see if she shows up. Here we go. We're trying.
Come back.
She's got to feed her mouse. That's the problem because it's spinning the wheel
No.
for the internet.
She's having a bit of an internet issue
This
today.
is
We
welcome,
had
welcome to live show.
it happens. It happens, but we'll just see what
Well, we might
happens.
as well. You want to talk about this, or you go to the next, or whatever you
No,
want to do.
we'll just go on to the next one.
There you go. That's pretty. Very vibrant.
Well, this one's probably more of one of her painting styles that she goes through, and so again, this was the feeling of vegetation that she's working through, and whether there be butterflies or just I just love her work and that it's inspired by nature and how she's able
Right.
to not replicate it, but respond to it. I mean, her
Yep.
color palette is very rich. It's full, and what it is specifically, I don't know the details specific about this piece. It's only the feeling you get from looking at it, and I think we'll just go on to another one here.
And you can
Sure.
see the person in it there too. That was very cool. So yeah, see,
Yeah.
all her stuff is very vibrant and bright, which is like
Yeah. Yeah.
it hits you, and I mean, like, and you smile. It's like it wakes you up, which is very cool.
Yeah. Well, these ones almost feels like two pieces of work together. You almost see a landscape in that top one. The lake
Yep.
and the sky, and then you have this dark, really rich caramel type colors in the foreground. Very beautiful little abstract piece. And I think this is kind of a 12 by 12. It's again a painting.
Yep.
But you can see the other colors that are scuffing through in that top half, in those teal colors and in the blues. You can see those oranges coming through. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just got a nice loose feel to it.
I like that. I put that, like when you first walk in the house, it hits you and you just get a smile to it. There you go.
It is a nice abstract, yet it still has,
Yeah.
I almost see a landscape in the bottom one as well.
It has a little depth to it, even though it's an abstract.
Yeah, it's got that. This one's
I like
definitely
this.
this one's definitely an abstract, and you
Yeah,
really got.
I wasn't sure if it was that or if it was just whatchamacallit, scenery. So
Well, it could be scenery, and you know what? With these things, they can either be horizontal or vertical, or
I was just gonna
however
say,
you onto it. But you can really see the textural aspects of this piece,
yeah,
and it's very scratchier. It's scratchier feeling than some of her other works,
yep,
and I think I talk about monoprints. I've done monoprints for years, and not
right,
so much in the last year or two, but they are great idea generators, and they are actual pieces of artwork.
right,
A lot of times they are reasonably priced because the way they're produced,
right.
you can make multiples of them, and they're sort of like thumbnail sketches, but they can actually be finished pieces of work, and it's a beautiful technique,
Yeah.
and I think this one's more of a painting. I
And
think there's
but
whether you're
once
being
again, this is kind of like the one a few before. It's sort of in the foreground, you have something, and then in the background, you have, if you will, your abstract.
a lot of yeah, and a lot of these can be just about inspiration, whether it's about
Hmm.
the sunset, whether you have this, sunset and water, if that's the only idea you've got. I don't know the specifics to this piece as to the reason for the color choices or the imagery that is there. But again, it doesn't matter. I think it's up
Right.
to the person that's viewing the work and they say, I like it. I want it in my house. And when they want to buy it and the way
Yeah.
they go. So I think it's still a lovely piece. This one's
This
really,
one, this is interesting.
it is because I did have a story with her when we talked, and she said she has about 80-acre property, and she said she she likes to go on, and there's a kind of a bramble that she used to walk through, and you got to duck
Okay.
down, and you got to go through all these trees, and these things would be obscuring things because you got to keep moving things out of the way to make your way through the bramble in her
Right.
the bush that she likes to walk through. And it evokes that feeling in you and think, oh
Mm.
my, I can see that, those, the closeness of those little twigs and branches that are right in your face.
Yep.
And it's nice to be able to replicate that in a piece, a feeling more so than being specifically drawing a certain willow tree or something,
Right.
right? You're just giving a feeling of a moment. And she had that ability, the colors, you feel it's kind of early spring feeling kind of colors, they're not green anymore, and they're not,
Right.
they're just coming about. But there's
Out of
all,
out of all her pieces, this is one of my favorites.
yeah,
There's just something about it that's, I want to say, in a nice way. It's haunting, but in a good way. So
Yeah, it is, yeah. But again, that's how the feeling you get, and other people will say, "Well, when I explain where the idea came from, oh, maybe you can see that, but in the beginning, it could have been anything else. It could be snow on a branches that are there, or whatever you want to make from it. But this one's again back to being a bit more
it's
of
like
the
the other one, but just upside down.
Yeah, you got the blue on the top, but again, they're almost like two pieces of work together. The top one gives a painting in by itself, the blue, blue on blue kind of
Right.
feeling. But she says it's really difficult. Um, it's really difficult trying to get those iridescents to show up. Um, I think Shelley's trying to get a hold of me.
No, we're
Uh,
good. Keep going. I'm talking to her. We're
Yeah,
fine.
keep talking to her. She just needs to connect. They're having internet problems, for sure. But we'll talk about her work, and
Yeah.
if it comes back in, we can skip back quickly and come
If push
back.
comes to shove, we can always do a part two with her and pick up with. We can do a whole nother set of artwork with her if
Yeah, but
so
I
she
think
can get her.
I love showing people that what you can do with things. I mean, she's inspired to do her painting from her monoprints, and the paintings can inspire monoprinting. And the nice thing with the monoprinting is it can be done quickly in the
Right.
morning and go out and come back later. It's fine. And
This is a nice piece too. This is very springish, if you will.
yeah, I think there's a real feeling of celebration in this one. I don't know what it is. There's this poof of color. It's like feathers. Like these things just and you can see down in the bottom right hand corner, there's kind of a leaf and a branch texture going on in the bottom. These things
Right.
are all now. I'm trying to remember if this one is actually on board, but you can make prints onto it and then do painting and on top of it in layers. And I'm not quite
Right.
sure exactly what she did on this piece here, but it's just it feels very, very light and colorful. Like it's got a brightness to it in a different way. I guess those complementary colors, that yellow and the purple thing that's happening.
Right.
Um, so I think it's got a really beautiful look. It's different than the other pieces. The other ones were hard edge defined. When we go
Mhm.
back to the previous one, that was like a landscape type feeling. Where this one can be landscape. It's almost like a reflection on the water. Like
Right.
the blue piece coming down where it ends could be a horizon line, and then the
Mhm.
rest just a reflection on water. Again,
Yep.
it's whatever you want to make of
I was
them.
gonna say it's abstract, so whatever your imagination creates.
It is, and there we
Oh, there
go.
we go.
It's
Beautiful.
a beautiful little
For
little
everybody that missed Shelley, and for Shelley, who we missed, about 38 minutes into this, is having a problem, still trying to connect, but still can't. What Paul
yeah.
will do, there's this. So we're going to say hello and goodbye to her, basically. Um,
I'm
Shelley,
on.
just I
Oh,
know.
you're
So
Yeah.
here's
well,
the good news. Here's the good news. We spoke about your art without you, and we think we did great. Shelley's links below. You and Paul, when we get off the air, we'll make an arrangement and we'll do a part two. So we're going to have this Shelley part one, and then we'll do a part 2 and go through the pieces, other pieces with you that we might have missed.
Well, we can always skip
Okay.
back and look at a few of them quickly here too. We have a few minutes if we want to do that as well. So we could.
Your internet's
Sure,
still a
I'm
little iffy, so I would rather see if we can get a better internet so we just don't do the same thing. But
We'll
Shelley, let me ask you this question. Your artwork is gorgeous, and there's several pieces there that we were talking about when you weren't on. So what's the price range? If someone goes to your website and wants to buy something from A to Z, what's kind of the range of your work? Other than you have a
Sorry.
piano player in the background, which is very nice to have that at the house. So what's the price range of your work?
They're anywhere from $30 to $1,000. I've got some really big canvases,
Okay, very cool.
but generally,
So
they're about 100 to about 400, depending,
gotcha.
the size of the canvas,
All
or
right.
or board, or if it's on paper, I don't include the canvas cost.
All right. Very cool. All right.
That
So
sounds good.
anybody who's interested, Shelley's link is below. And if you can't figure out how to get a hold of her, get a hold of us. We'll get a hold of her. And Shelley's going to be back. Paul has his schedule. So Paul and Shelley will make an arrangement with Shelley to be back. And we'll hopefully have better internet connection. And Shelley will be there the whole interview, not with me sitting in going, look at the pretty colors.
Yeah,
And that'll be good.
we'll make sure she has some new artwork to show, and it'll
That's
be
right.
like a show. So
Yeah.
she'll get all energized a little bit, and we're going to get this one connected. We'll get it corrected
There you
again.
go. And we'll get her internet with the faster mouse that turns the wheel. So, so Shelley,
have-
thank you,
The
thank you so
last few
much.
days,
So,
thank you
well, thank
very
you.
much.
Oh, it was a
Okay.
pleasure. And stay after the credits so we can figure it out. Anyway, everybody, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like. We'll see you next Thursday with another artist. And we'll go from there, from Canada or the 51st state, depending. And that's it. We'll see everybody later. Have a great week, everybody. Cheers.
Yeah.